it was refreshing. And then everybody started talking about it, and we went back and looked at a couple more films, and then
You thought Clint Eastwood was calm, was untouchable, but at 95 years old, the legend finally let the silence speak. Behind the squint, the quiet authority, and the cowboy restraint, there's a list. 6 names, 6 betrayals, 6 people Clint Eastwood never forgave and never forgot. They weren't just colleagues. They weren't just actors or directors passing through his life. They were stars he welcomed into his world, trusted on his sets, shared the glory of Hollywood with, and yet somehow they betrayed him. They stood beside him in fame, in applause, in triumph, and then crossed lines Clint Eastwood does not allow anyone to cross. Lines drawn by decades of discipline, decades of silent observation, decades of knowing exactly what's worth his time and what isn't. Some of them failed him professionally. Some humiliated him publicly. Some questioned his judgment or mocked what he held sacred. And once you hear who they are, you'll understand why Clint's silence has always been more dangerous than anger. Because with Clint, silence isn't empty. It isn't passive. It's the sharpest warning, the coldest justice, and the loudest statement he'll ever make. This is the list of the 6 celebrities who, in Clint Eastwood's eyes, crossed the line and pay the price of being quietly erased from his life. Leonardo DiCaprio. The golden boy Clint never called back. What could make Clint Eastwood walk away from his own movie set? The answer, Leonardo DiCaprio. When J. Edgar began filming in 2010, it looked like a perfect match, Hollywood's calmest director and its most intense actor. But from day one, tension filled the air. DiCaprio arrived armed with folders of research, highlighted FBI files, historical notes, rewritten interpretations. Clint watched quietly. He came in like a detective trying to solve me, Clint once joked, but the irritation underneath was real and growing. Then came the breaking point, the emotional breakdown scene. Leo nailed it in one take, raw, uncomfortable. Perfect. Cut, Clint said. That's it. But DiCaprio wanted more. Another take, and another. By the 6th, Clint wasn't behind the camera anymore. He stood at the craft table, coffee in hand, stone-faced. When asked if he was okay, Clint muttered, "He's still searching for something I already found." After filming wrapped, something ended. Casting meetings followed. DiCaprio's name came up. Clint shook his head. "Great actor," he said, "but not my kind." They never worked together again, never shared a stage, never spoke publicly. To Clint Eastwood, perfection isn't repetition. It's knowing when to stop. Michael Orr, the golden boy, Clint never called back. What could possibly make Clint Eastwood, the calmest man in Hollywood, walk away from his own movie set? The answer, Leonardo DiCaprio. When J. Edgar began filming in 2010, it seemed like a dream pairing. Hollywood's most disciplined, unflappable director paired with its most intense, method-driven actor. Fans and critics alike expected magic. But behind the cameras, tension simmered from day one. DiCaprio arrived armed for battle, not with guns, but with meticulous preparation. Folders of historical research, pages of FBI memos, highlighted and annotated, detailed interpretations, every scene dissected, every motive analyzed. Clint watched, quietly, patiently, until patience started to wear thin. He came in like a detective trying to solve me, Clint joked later. But behind the humor was a creeping irritation. The actor's relentless pursuit of more perfect clashed with Clint's philosophy. One take, instinct, truth. Too much rehearsal, too much overthinking. It drained the authenticity he prized. The breaking point came during the emotional breakdown scene. Leo nailed it. Raw, flawless. So real it left the room frozen in silence. Cut, Clint said. That's it. But DiCaprio wanted another. And another. Take after take. By the 6th, Clint wasn't directing anymore. He leaned on the craft table, coffee in hand, stone-faced, a man watching patience evaporate. When someone asked if he was okay, Clint muttered, "He's still searching for something I already found." Filming wrapped, and an unspoken rift remained. Casting meetings later mentioned DiCaprio's name. Clint shook his head. "Great actor," he said, "but not my kind." They never worked together again. Never shared a stage. Never spoke publicly. For Clint Eastwood, perfection isn't about repetition. It isn't about doing it again and again until it's flawless on paper. Perfection is knowing when something is complete, when the truth of a moment has been captured, and refusing to waste another second chasing illusions. And that is why Leonardo DiCaprio, the golden boy of Hollywood, was quietly erased from Clint's world. Number 3, Barbra Streisand, the perfectionist who broke his patience. If there's one name that still tightens Clint Eastwood's jaw after a decade in Hollywood, it's Barbra Streisand. Two legendary figures. Two vastly different philosophies. Two approaches to filmmaking that could not have been further apart. Streisand, the perfectionist, demanded 40, 50, sometimes even 60 takes just to capture a single expression. Every line, every gesture had to be perfect in her eyes. Every moment dissected, analyzed, rehearsed endlessly. Clint Eastwood, on the other hand, believed in instinct, in truth, in raw emotion captured in the moment. If it's not real the first time, he said, it's not worth filming. By the early 1990s, their differences had grown beyond professional disagreements. They had become personal, simmering into quiet contempt. Clint watched a style he considered overthinking and controlling dominate Hollywood, and he recoiled. When The Prince of Tides failed to earn Streisand a Best Director nomination, Clint reportedly remarked to a friend, maybe if she made decisions faster, she'd finish more movies. But the defining moment came years later with The Bridges of Madison County. Streisand had circled the project for years, trapped in indecision, then ultimately walked away. Clint stepped in. He rewrote the script, shot the film quickly, efficiently, silently. And the result? A quiet, emotional masterpiece that earned Oscar recognition and cemented his reputation for understated brilliance. He never mentioned Streisand's name publicly. They never crossed paths again. To Clint, she became more than a difficult colleague. She was the embodiment of everything he despised in modern filmmaking: control, hesitation, the death of instinct. In Clint's world, filmmaking is about capturing truth in a single moment. Streisand represented the opposite, an obsession with endless repetition that killed spontaneity and drained authenticity. And in the quietest way, Clint Eastwood made it clear, some creative clashes are unforgivable. Number 4. Tommy Lee Jones 2 Alphas. One set. The first day, Tommy Lee Jones stepped onto the set of In the Line of Fire. Clint Eastwood leaned over to a crew member and muttered, "Two bulls and one pin. This won't last." At first glance, they seemed like a perfect pairing. Eastwood, calm and commanding behind the camera, Jones, intense and commanding in front of it. But behind the scenes, the set became a battlefield of wills. Jones argued direction. He rewrote lines. He stayed in character long after Clint called cut. Clint watched, silent, patient, unimpressed. He had directed some of the greatest actors in Hollywood, but this was different. He recognized another alpha, a force unwilling to yield, fully in character. Clint yelled cut, but Jones kept going, locking eyes with him as if challenging the director himself. The crew froze. The air was electric. You could feel the battle of dominance unfolding silently. Clint paused, took a deep breath, then whispered to no one in particular, "Life's too short for that kind of theater." And just like that, he walked off the set. They never worked together again. They never reconciled. They never shared a stage or an interview. "Great actor," Clint would say years later. "But we don't speak the same language." Translation: in Clint Eastwood's world, there is only one alpha on set, and he calls cut. Two strong personalities, one clash, and a professional relationship that ended before it truly began. Number 5. Richard B. Owen talent drowned in alcohol. On the set of Where Eagles Dare, Clint Eastwood faced a challenge far different from a demanding actor or a creative clash. The problem wasn't ego. It wasn't ambition. It was discipline, or the shocking lack of it. Richard Burton arrived late, slurred his lines, reeked of the previous night's indulgences. Clint, already dressed and ready at dawn, watched silently as Burton stumbled through take after take, leaving frustration simmering beneath the surface. The director, who had commanded some of Hollywood's greatest actors, found himself questioning the limits of patience. After Burton flubbed the same line for the 10th time, Clint finally muttered under his breath, "I'm paid by the picture, not by the hour." A warning, perhaps. But the final blow came not on set, but in words. Burton, oblivious or defiant, later called the film a paycheck job. To Clint, this was more than arrogance, it was betrayal. Every film deserved commitment. Every scene deserved focus. To dismiss it as mere work was unforgivable. Years later, when asked about Burton, Clint offered a verdict that was as brief as it was cutting. Talented guy. Wasted talent. No bitterness. No long explanation. Just the truth. In Clint's world, silence is sharper than words, and wasted potential is the one offense he never forgives. Richard Burton's talent was undeniable, but for Clint Eastwood, it was overshadowed by carelessness, inconsistency, and a lack of respect for the craft. Once the line was crossed, there was no turning back. Number 6. Gene Seberg, the one he never spoke about again. Clint Eastwood never talks about Paint Your Wagon. And for good reason. The source of that silence? Jean Seberg. She was unpredictable, emotionally fragile. A whirlwind of charm one moment, a storm of withdrawal the next. She would vanish into her trailer for hours, leaving the crew guessing, the schedule unraveling. Clint, in contrast, was the embodiment of focus, punctual, disciplined, and allergic to drama. He waited, silently, dying a little inside with each interrupted take, each unpredictable moment. By the third week of filming, his patience had frayed. Seberg's inconsistent performances slowed production. Every day became a battle between professionalism and chaos. Then the film bombed. And Seberg, in interviews, publicly blamed Clint's wooden performance for the failure. For Clint, that crossed a line. It was one thing to struggle privately, another to criticize a colleague publicly after months of shared effort. From that moment on, Jean Seberg ceased to exist in his world. Her name was never spoken. Any mention of her was met with silence, a quiet refusal to engage. When news broke of Seberg's tragic death in 1979, Clint said nothing. Friends recall that he looked genuinely sad, but never softened, never allowed sentiment to cloud his judgment. "Some people aren't cut out for the work," he said quietly. "And I don't need to deal with it twice." For Clint Eastwood, discipline, respect, and professionalism are sacred. Cross the line, and even Hollywood legends can be quietly erased from his world, never to be remembered aloud again. Oh, so what do you think? Was Clint Eastwood right to cut these 6 stars out of his life completely? To erase them quietly, without confrontation, without compromise? Or did his silence go too far, letting grudges fester, letting pride dictate his relationships? Each of these names represents a moment where respect, discipline, or trust was broken in Clint's world. To outsiders, it might seem harsh, cold, even unforgiving. But in Clint Eastwood's universe, actions speak louder than words, and silence carries more weight than anger ever could. He doesn't forgive lightly. He doesn't forget easily. For him, crossing a line isn't just a mistake, it's a permanent mark. And maybe that's the lesson. In a life spent commanding sets, capturing perfection, and holding to a code of honor, Clint Eastwood shows us that some boundaries are sacred, and some betrayals are too deep to reconcile. So, tell us in the comments. Do you admire his discipline, his unyielding standards, his quiet justice? Or do you think even a legend like Clint Eastwood could have softened, forgiven, and moved on? Because with Clint, the loudest statement is often the one he never says. And the echoes of his silence speak louder than any words ever could.